Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's show. As always, my name is Karen, and it is my pleasure to welcome you. For those of us who are paying attention to the news, we see that world events are unfolding at a tremendously rapid pace. It's unlike anything that many of us have ever experienced or seen before. Fortunately for most of us, we are not experiencing the horrors. We are instead experiencing the ability to donate money, to donate clothing, to pray, to send emails. What we are experiencing, and probably will experience more of, is disruptions to supply chains. Now, we've gotten used to some of that through the pandemic. However, this could happen to a greater extent. That is what I want to talk with you about today, because that's what we talk about here. Proactively being involved in your own life. What are some of the things that you can do to proactively mitigate the supply chain disruptions that are going to directly affect you? Let's get started. Many of you are planting gardens right now. For some of you, it's kind of a hobby. For others, with more property perhaps, it's more of a food provision source for your entire family. Some of you out there will really grow the food that you need through the summer. The reality is most of us don't. So while we're planning our gardens, for those who have the ability, think about planting a garden that will supply your needs not only for the summer, but for the time beyond. Canning, freezing, all of the things that you can do to put fresh food that you have grown on your shelves and in your freezer. I grow a few tomato plants. I'm going to try to do better at that this year. And I can tell you that on the roof of the building in which I live, last year, some of the residents petitioned the condo board to allow them to plant vegetables in the flower planters that had been built in up on the roof. They weren't really being cared for as flower planters. I mean, sometimes people would come along and water them, but because they were on the roof and, sort of far away from the ground, nobody paid attention. So some of the residents here got together and participated in planting vegetables. What a joy it was to be able to go up there and get a fresh onion, a tomato. I grew tomatoes on my balcony, but really, for those who didn't, to be able to go up there and take advantage of fresh produce, what a joy. We may have to be more strategic about how we think about this garden this summer. And yes, I'm going to participate in it. That's something that we can all do. If you grow some extra and can donate it to your local food bank, I'm sure that would be appreciated as well. If you don't have the space to do that, participate in a neighborhood garden or a community garden. If you can't do any of that because maybe you do live in an apartment and just don't have the square footage to manage anything, or perhaps you live in a home and the idea of a garden is just beyond your capabilities, that's fine. Support local growers. If you live in a city, go to the farmers markets. If you live in a rural area, yes, go to the farmers markets. But in rural areas, we all know where there are growers, and we can go right to their farms and either harvest the produce ourselves or buy it at their stands, whichever they allow. So I think, being able to do some of that locally will be really helpful. Also, start changing your taste buds a little bit and relying more on the things that can be grown in your backyard or locally, rather than the more exotic fruits and vegetables that are grown in faraway places and trucked in. I know. Some of the things you really like, such as bananas, are definitely grown in faraway places. You get to pick and choose. You get to pick and choose how to spend your money. But if you change your taste buds just a little, and learn to make the meals with the things you can access more locally, You'll probably save a great deal of money. Okay, there's that. Follow the same path with the meats you prefer. Beef, chicken, pork, turkey, fish if you live in an area where fresh fish are caught. Source those things as locally as you possibly can and learn how to deal with and cook the things that you can access locally. Talking about saving costs on fuel here, all right? So think about shopping locally, that shop local, buy local, support local thing. It's stronger this year than it ever has been in the past, and it really needs to be. For those who don't know how to cook from scratch or bake from scratch, learn. Just learn. Kind of a lost art, you know. In our grandparents' time, it's just what they did. And then when women went into the workforce, prepared meals became more of a thing. But so did slow cookers. So learn how to bake from scratch. And if you're making something, double the batch and put half of it in the freezer, and then you'll have a prepared meal for later. These are the kinds of things that we have to ingrain more in our habits and practices. How about spring cleaning? Now, this is something where I really have to pay better attention to doing in my own home. Really dig in there. Clean things out. If there are things you haven't worn, donate them. You know, the local Goodwill or Restore or whatever local secondhand store is in your area will be grateful for whatever you can bring to them. And somebody will be grateful to purchase those things at a much less cost than they would be able to go out and buy them new. You know, the saying really is true. One person's stuff is another person's treasure. So get rid of your stuff and let them be treasures for someone else. Now that you have all that space, get comfortable with having that space. Don't feel the need to go fill it back up again. It's kind of a habit that we've gotten into, this business of consumerism. You know, we've got to have the latest, the greatest, the newest. Resist the urge to buy that shiny new thing because it's going to lose its luster. Be content buying the less expensive thing without the brand name that does exactly the same thing as that thing with the bougie name on it that will make your status feel more. You know, the whole thing about status, that's a concept we have to lose. It really does. You know, they don't function any differently because they cost $100 instead of $25. They just don't. Sometimes it's the name that makes all the difference. Lose the affiliation with the bougie names. Look around your community or your region and realize what can be had locally. It's kind of amazing when you start looking around at what can be had. I'll give you a for instance. When I was doing some Christmas shopping a couple of years ago, this was not this Christmas, but last Christmas, I went to Etsy online because some of us like to shop online. And if you're someone who does, this is something you can do. Go to Etsy, and with their sliders, you can choose to see makers only in your area. I did that, and I found this really cool maker of puzzles, you know, puzzles that you put out on a table and put together. As it happens, one of my sons-in-law loves doing puzzles. So I bought him a puzzle from this maker that I would not have even known about had I not gone to Etsy and used those criteria choosers to choose makers in my own area. So you can do that. While you are doing that, you can remember that the local business owners in your area probably live in your area, which means they pay taxes in your area. Probably also means they shop in your local grocery stores. So they are spending their dollars locally, just like you are. All of that spending locally benefits your local community. And let's not forget that local businesses are generally the first to step up to support the local sports activities, the local live theater, the dance competitions that our children and grandchildren participate in. So while they are supporting our communities, it would be really great to turn our support to them. Let's think about doing that. In the same vein, YouTube is a great resource. I think I've said this before. What a great resource it is. You can find out how to do literally anything on YouTube. Go to YouTube. You can find out how to use ingredients that you have in your home or that you can source locally to make all of your lotions and potions, to make cleaning supplies, to repair just about anything. Repairing instead of replacing. That's a good thing to get in the habit of. Look at YouTube and you can figure it out. If you want to cook a recipe using a particular ingredient, go to YouTube. You'll find a recipe. You'll find lots of recipes. Same for baking. Great resource. Make use of it. I think you get the idea. The cost of fuel is steadily rising. Now, again, it's a political discussion about whether that's the result of sanctions against Russia or not. Whether it is or isn't, fuel costs are rising and they may well rise some more. Guess what? That means it costs more to truck goods all around North America. In the end, the consumer pays for that. So, to the extent that we can reduce the impact that that has on us, on our goods and our food, that will affect us in a more positive way. Give us back control. These are the kinds of things that our grandparents and our great-grandparents just knew how to do. My generation and my children's generation and our grandchildren's generations don't know how to do this. Maybe everything old should be new again. Because that's how we get back the control. Your life can change in an instant if you fall and break a hip or if you're in a car crash. It can change over time if you begin to lose range of motion or suffer the effects of a progressive disease. The ability to live a stable, affordable life is being challenged right now. And it may be challenged further. Changing our thinking and then changing our actions along with it to think more about the things that we can control and can take control of will benefit all of us. That is my message to you today. And I think that making these changes in very meaningful ways, that's something that can benefit all of us. Join us next Wednesday at 12 noon for another edition. And until then, take care of yourselves, be kind to everyone, and be good to yourselves. Bye, everybody.